I would like to briefly provide some general tips for a smooth flow of this session, in which we can hopefully all learn and have a very good discussion. So in order to assure a good sound quality and best flow of the Q&A, we would like to invite you to please post your comments and questions to the speakers in the chat function that's on your screen, along with your name and organization if you're joining from an organization today. So questions will be taken in the order they come at the end of the session. If you have a technical question or a support request related to the Zoom call, please use the chat function on the same screen or privately direct it to Simit IT, which you can see in the participants list. Without further comments, I would like to invite the Mexican ambassador, Erasmo Martinez, to then Dr. Karugu to take the floor. Please, Doctor.
Okay. Good afternoon.
You can see.
Okay. Oh, this is the camera.
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, those who are joining us in person and those who are online. On behalf of JKUAT Enterprises, I would like to welcome you all to this session of the webinar on nixtamalization. We are glad that our Mexican friends, the ambassador, His Excellency Erasmo Martinez, and his team are here today. We have been working with them for the last 2 years in nixtamalization. I personally have spent a 2-day seminar, attended a 2-day seminar, and I know the worth, the value of the technology that they are imparting to us. And mine is the simple task of welcoming you all. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Karugu, for receiving us and opening the doors of the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. We are very pleased to be here again with you and your students and professors, of the university, to continue our collaboration, with the university in order to make at your disposal information, very relevant information about nixtamalization, which is the process that we use in Mexico to consume maize and make a lot of products, more than 300 products that we make in Mexico. I like to say that whoever who has visited Mexico or tried Mexican gastronomy might have noticed, that maize plays a very significant role in our society. Maize is not only deeply embedded in life, history, tradition of our country, it's also part of our identity. And this very simple technique, that comes from ancestral times, is a very relevant one, and we have explained that many times in many other workshops, seminars that we have had here in the university and in some other fora here in Nairobi. Why? Because it has a lot of value added, to maize. This process is very important because it helps really a lot, to reduce the content of aflatoxins in maize. There are scientific studies that tell us, that we can reduce even up to 50 to 75% aflatoxins in maize. Also, the process allows to better preserve nutrients in maize, and besides, as I said, we can make a lot of products with this very simple technique that was used by our ancestral cultures of Mexico and Mesoamerica. Among them, the Aztecs, the Mayas, Olmecas, and many other civilizations that used to be, from pre-colonial times in that region. Maize, as I said, is part of our identity and is very central to our identity, Why? Well, because ancestral civilizations, somehow improve the way, to consume and to process and consume maize. As you may know, we have talked about that, Mexico is the source of most of the original Creole maize in the world. We have about 59 varieties out of 60-something varieties in total that we have. So for us, maize is quite important. We cannot conceive a life in Mexico without maize every day. And we consume it, as I said, in many other ways. And why this technique is very important also, besides maintaining the nutrients and reducing aflatoxins, because the diversity of products that you make out of with this technique allows you also, to generate economic activity by producing many more products. That means you are able to generate more employment. The economy of maize in Mexico has a very high economic value. A lot of people make a living out of that, and I think that Kenya can profit from that. So the Embassy of Mexico, together with Amexid and Calro, who are very close partners, and without them, we for sure we could have not gone so far, in our ports here in Kenya, have been really central, in all what we have been doing. They have always been with us, participating and coordinating with us many of the training events that we have been having, seminars, workshops, and so on. So I really want to thank in at this moment CIMIT, very much for its very valuable support in all this. And for sure, I can say that we will be working together in the years to come in order to make the transfer of nixtamalization to Kenya possible, and even to the region one of these days. Kenya can be the platform to export, this technique to other parts of Africa, and starting with Eastern Africa. As we all know, a very large population of the region consumes maize here. So we are very pleased to say, that during these last 5 years, we have advanced a lot, and it has been thanks to the willingness of the government of Mexico at its highest level. That means the President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, who was very interested from the time I arrived here in Kenya, and that's why with his support, we started this cooperation, and we have been able to advance up to now in many ways. Thanks to this process of collaboration, we have given very good steps, in order to, in an orderly way, try to implement this project. And we have given a very relevant steps. We created a steering committee under the leadership of the Ministry of Agriculture, and in that steering committee participates many other actors like the Ministry of Health, Calro itself, the Ministry of Agriculture, the private sector, universities, and some other actors. There we coordinate actions, in order to disseminate the knowledge of the information related to this very important technique for processing maize, called nixtamalization. So we are very pleased, that you opened the doors to us here. We are very satisfied, with the the way the university has been using the machine we donated to it. We know that the university has been training people and exploring the possibility even to develop products in a way, that respond to the needs and satisfaction taste of the Kenyan people. So we thank you very much for that. I just like to say that I just want to thank, before I end my intervention, to the other participants, the program that we have organized for today in a coordinated way with CIMIT. I want to thank personally ONU ECPA from the University of Wangen, CIMIT, We want to thank Natalia Palacios, who has always been with us, and Rafael Mier from Fundación Tortilla in Mexico, who will be speaking about nixtamalized products from Mexico to the world, and also Mr. Omar Rodriguez from Lenin Industries, and also Rodrigo Ariciaga from the enterprise, Molitechnia Enterprise. So I want to thank all of them for being with us, for helping us, to make all this information available. I really hope that at the end of this, we'll go out, knowing in a very precise way what this technique is all about. So I thank you very much, Dr. Carugo, for having us here. We are very pleased. Yeah, thank you very much. So.
All right. So we're going to start with ONU ECPA, who, as the ambassador explained, is going to talk about maize in African food. ONU, if you want to share your screen.
Yes, I will do that. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to present. Last year, I was in Mexico. I had a wonderful time there. And 5 years ago, I was in Nairobi too. I spent 3 months in Nairobi. So it's very good to connect with people from these 2 countries. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So today I'll be presenting on maize in African food. My name is ONU ECPA from Netherlands. So briefly about me, I'm very much interested and passionate about enhancing nutrition security, basically targeting bottom of the pyramid, coming up with innovations using local resources, and also using technology that are available in the local environment. So these are the things that I'm very passionate about. And I had a PhD from Wageningen University, and also Masters in Food Quality Management from the same institution. Also BSc in Biochemistry from University of Ilorin in Nigeria. So cereal production in Africa. So maize, in terms of production, is the dominant crop. About 45% of cereal is maize. But when you look at food use, wheat is the dominant in terms of the predominant in terms of food use. So 33% of cereal consumption is from wheat. And of course, this likely depends on importation. And when you project this into the future, the production still remains the same trend. Maize, still looking at the future, maize is the major cereal crops. And also in terms of production, wheat, in terms of consumption, wheat remains the major consumed cereal. And like I said before, it relies on importation. And this trend, of course, is not really good for food security, especially looking at this kind of period where countries are on lockdown and importation is difficult. So it's really call for more attention on local crops that are climate smart and resilient. And of course, maize is almost sufficient in terms of production. So we should pay more attention to crops that are available instead of importing, for in this case, wheat. So how about the contribution of maize to nutrition of Africans? Maize actually contributes a lot in some countries in terms of proteins. Of course, this is about quantity now. In terms of protein, maize contributes close to half of the proteins, up to close to 50%, especially in Zambia and Zimbabwe. Maize contributes a lot. In Kenya, in terms of proteins, close to 30% comes from maize consumption. Also in terms of mineral consumption, maize contributes a lot. In terms of iron, zinc, calcium, maize contributes a lot. For Kenya, more than 30%. For some countries, it's as high as 60%. And of course, this is a national data. When you narrow it down to specific locations in different countries, you see very high variability in terms of this data. Maize-based foods, in one of our publications, we actually listed up to close to 200 maize-based foods that are present in Africa. And I'm sure for some of these, you're familiar with some of these maize-based foods. In Western Africa, there are so many maize-based foods from fermentation, using fermentation sourdough technology. In Eastern Africa, there are also few fermentation being used for maize-based foods. In Kenya, there are different kinds of maize-based food present in Kenya. I'm sure you're familiar with some of these. Boiled and roasted maize is actually, it's also very common. And the good thing about this is you consume the maize as a whole, and also there's no bias in terms of color or kind of preference for white maize, which you see in terms of garlic production and all that. These ones, people consume yellow maize, even as boiled as roasted. So there are other maize-based food, githeri, mutoko, mokimo, and ugali, of course, is the champion of all of them, which almost everyone consumes in Kenya. But one thing that is not common here is the use of maize for bakery, for bread. It's not common here. So we also need to come up with innovations that can use maize for bread making, especially considering that Africa rely on importation of wheat for bread making. So, and that's why innovation or technique like nixtamalization could play a role in terms of positioning maize as a substitute for wheat in bread making or the production of snacks. Looking at traditional maize-based foods and beverage, the different products can be interconnected using this flow, which is from one of our publications. So if you look at the flow, you can trace close to 200 maize-based food present in Africa in this flow chart. Some of the products comes from fresh, some from dry maize. And when it comes to nixtamalization, you can introduce nixtamalization in different aspects of the processing flow. Some involves dehulling, milling, and then making of flour or paste. And then this nixtamalization can be introduced in different forms. And also it's common in Kenya to have different types of maize flour. You have the whole maize, the whole and the whole, the jam. The whole and the jam maize is also very common with extraction rate of around 60%. Of course, this kind of maize with a low extraction rate, you lose a lot of nutrients in it. You can lose as high as more than 30% of the minerals present in it. And of course, from industry production, you can augment this by exogenous fortification. But for home-based production, this is not possible. So, and also there's a perception that whole maize is for the poor and refined maize is for the rich people, which is not the case in terms of nutrition-wise. Also, when you compare processing in Mexico and in Africa, in a lot of the processing methods, they are not so different. For instance, if you look at the chart on the right side, which is from Benin, if you compare it to Mexico, they actually pre-cook the whole maize, then soak the same way it's done in Mexico. The only thing that is missing here is the use of alkaline, calcium hydroxide. So actually the process is not so different. So actually at this point, I was hoping that a lot of people would have taken up nixtamalization technique because it's not so much different. And even the Kalenjins, people in Kenya, they use alkaline for cooking of their of githeri. So in terms of maize varieties, of course, there are different preferences, and it's always very important to consider the preference of the people while introducing the varieties, especially the food used by the people. And this is important because high agronomic performance doesn't guarantee adoption. So we need to look at the preference of people. And usually it's common to have preference for color. Providing nutritional awareness information has been helping. And also in terms of some hybrid, it's important to look at what people use this kind of hybrid for, because in some local communities, it's common to hear that some of the hybrid gives a lighter ugali, which basically means they need more flour to make the kind of ugali they want. Of course, in terms of preference, there's no one can fit all solution. So we must understand the target consumer, end users, and then combine it with agronomic properties to come up with a long-term and sustainable success maize varieties targeting the people. So when it comes to breeding objective, there are different areas that are important for maize in Africa. Of course, a lot has been done in nutrient, improving the nutrient density, increasing protein, increasing provitamin A. Also, we need to position maize to be able to make bread and snacks, and especially popcorn. Popcorn is not very, it's common in Africa, but we don't have varieties that are really suitable in terms of growth, in terms of production in Africa. Also, grain maize is very, very common, but we don't have varieties that are actually targeting grain maize production. Also, in terms of ease of production, we need varieties that have high yield of during processing and also less waste. And also in terms of anti-nutrients, maize contributes in Africa for Eastern and Southern Africa, close to 60% of phytates anti-nutrient comes from maize. So we need to find a way in which we can either reduce the phytate or increase phytase enzyme, which can help in terms of degrading phytate. So what are the opportunities that are present in maize value chain in Africa? Number one, we have nixtamalization, which is what we are talking to. So it's a huge opportunity. and I've seen that people are really interested in nixtamalization. And especially if we're targeting street food vendors, this can really thrive, which is very good for nutrition security, and especially when we can combine this kind of technology with what is locally available. And of course, like it has been mentioned before, this is also good in terms of reducing aflatoxin, which is a major issue. My experience in Kenya 5 years ago was shows that aflatoxin is a major issue. We found a lot in milk. So this technology can help a lot. But while we're introducing this, we need to consider the preference of the people, what they think about the color. And also, we also need to consider how we can incorporate others locally, climate smart indigenous crop, maybe millet, sorghum. We also need to consider them. Also, in terms of breakfast food or ready to eat food, these are huge opportunities that are present in Africa. Also, when it comes to production of bread and snacks, it's a huge opportunity that we need to see how we can improve maize, the functional property to be able to make bread and snacks, and also complementary food, how we can blend maize with different protein-rich or nutrient-rich crops to be able to come up with complementary food. These are huge opportunities. Even specialty food, such as blending provitamin A with other nutrient-rich crops or maize varieties to come up with nutrient-dense food. These are huge opportunities that are present in Africa. Also, when it comes to countries that are using a lot of fermentation technology, it's important to optimize the microorganism that is being used as starter culture. Because fermentation now is mostly based on spontaneous fermentation. So how can we come up with starter culture that can even enrich the fermentation process? For instance, even in terms of vitamins, there are bacteria that can excrete vitamin or produce vitamin in excess amount during fermentation. So it's not just about biofortification. Fermentation can even fortify the product itself. We also see opportunities in probiotics and prebiotics. There are some maize varieties that have high amounts of resistant starch. This can act as prebiotics. So basically, we need to standardize a fermented product, which can be useful in terms of putting the products on the market. And one other opportunity, the last opportunity here is talking about whole kernel products. These are huge opportunities, and this comes from using green maize or canning the maize, and also wet milling. I've received calls from people to ask questions about how they can extract different components of maize, especially oil. So these are huge opportunities which are present in African market. So because of my time, I don't have a lot here. So this is more of a general presentation just to show you what is in maize in African food. So lastly, my last final remark here is a safe, affordable, and plentiful supply of food is a national security issue. So keep up the great work, CMIT and Embassy of Mexico in Kenya and Jomo Kenyatta University. Thank you very much.
Good.
Now we will invite Natalia to take the floor and share the screen.
Onu, could you let me share the screen, please?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for the colleagues here in Mexico and this side of the world. Well, as the ambassador mentioned, previously. We will really like to thank the University of Jomo Kenyatta and of course the embassy and all the colleagues that are today here to discuss about the nixtamalization, and thanks also to ONU that has given us a general perspective of the uses of maize. As the ambassador pointed out at the beginning, I mean, maize has so many uses and is part of the culture, of course, is longer with the Mexican and the Central American culture, but it's also part of the culture in several countries in Africa. So one of the options to use maize is actually the nixtamalization. Now, let me see what. And as Onu mentioned, there are also many other opportunities to increase the nutritional benefits of maize and also to increase the safety when we use the maize kernels. So some options are, of course, biofortification of maize, the quality protein maize that perhaps some of you have already heard about. That is maize with higher concentration of tryptophan and lysine. We also have provitamin A maize, and we also, in collaboration with IITA and Harvest Plus, have developed a high zinc maize. High zinc maize is by now being released and promoted in Latin America, but there is also opportunities for countries in Africa to start using that biofortified maize. In terms of processing, nixtamalization and fermentation has been already mentioned, and in terms of functional food, fortified maize products, and another option is, for instance, eggs from chickens being fed with provitamin A maize. So we have several options to increase that nutritional benefits from this common cereal, but of course the general recommendation is diet diversification. As much as we can have in our plate in terms of different legumes, vegetables, fruits, and sources of milk products is much better for the nutritional benefit of the consumers. When we talk about nixtamalization, it only needs 3 different ingredients: maize, lime, that it is actually calcium hydroxide, or we can use other type of salts, but the most common here in Mexico is calcium hydroxide and water. So those are the 3 elements that we really need to do the nixtamalization. I'm going to describe 3 different levels of nixtamalization that we can think of when we talk about this technique being used in Mexico. As the ambassador mentioned, is a technique that is being used from the pre-Hispanic time, actually from the Olmec time. And so it's part of the culture here in Mexico and Central America. So it is being used at the household level. More or less 500,000 tons of maize is being processed in this way at home per year. And it is just involving the cooking of the kernels in water with lime, and then steeping that kernels overnight. It can be, I mean, the steeping process can go from 2 hours to 16 hours, it depending on the people itself, and also on the regions. In the southern part of the country, the nixtamalization is very fast, the steeping process is very fast, and in the central part of the process, people tend to leave the nixtamalized kernels in steeping for a longer time, up to 16 hours. So this is a common process people are doing at home, and some people are actually using this process to generate some income. So people go to street and they sell the nixtamalized products on the street, and it's kind of a fast food for workers that go every day to their places. Then we have what we call the wet milling level, or the masa tortilla level. And later in the presentation, Omar will describe a little bit more in detail all the equipment that is actually involved in that type of industry. But we can say that approximately in Mexico we have more than 100,000 traditional tortillerias. Well, now is mixed between the traditional process with the use of nixtamalized flour, but they are actually small establishments where they are selling the tortillas, the fresh tortillas. And it is also a source of employment, since if we talk about the meal plants, the tortilleria, the place where where they sell the tortillas, can have 2.53 persons per place. So we are talking about more than 300,000 employees around the country. So it's actually a good source of employment as well. And the third level of nixtamalization, I would say, is the nixtamalized flour industry. So it's the biggest one, it's the commercial one. We have about 6 brands in the country with more than 30 factories around the country. And the biggest one, I think, is what we call, or what is known as Maseca, Grupo Maseca, that also has some operation in other parts of the world, including Asia and Europe. And they estimate to have around 150,000 jobs being, 150,000 people working in this type of industry. They have a big presence also in US and Canada, where these days the industry is expanding due to the increased number of gluten intolerant people, and nixtamalization and maize is an alternative for this type of industry. So this is a large volume, and they process around 2.7 million tons of maize per year. So how the tortillas are distributed? Well, these days we have several places for distribution. The most common one is what we call the tortilleria. It's a small shop where they actually, well, in some cases they do the nixtamalization and they make the tortillas, or in other cases they just produce the tortilla and they sell it hot. So people just go in the morning or at midday to buy their fresh tortillas. But also it is becoming very common, the distribution, house or home distribution of tortillas in motorcycles or bikes, and especially during this time of the pandemic, it is becoming really popular that they are selling the hot or the warm tortillas house by house. We also have the tortillas being sold in the supermarkets, in big retail supermarkets, and also being sold in small shops in the neighborhoods. There are thousands of different options of tortillas in the markets. Of course, some of them are not really the best quality because they use so much chemicals to preserve the product, and the quality of the tortilla is compromised. But just to mention that there are several options where people are mixing actually different cereals, including soybeans with maize, or actually beans with maize, or they also include what is very common in Mexico, the nopal, is the cactus leaf. They grind it and they include it in the tortilla, so the nutritional benefit are improved, and also the taste is different and is being commercialized as a different option for the consumers. So when we compare the 3 different levels of nixtamalization, the household, the masa tortilla or the industry 1, and the nixtamalized flour or industry 2, so the capacity of each one, of course, varies, as I said, at the whole household level, between 1 to 5 kgs are being processed, and of course, it is more common at the rural area than at the urban area. These days, it's being I mean, nixtamalization is kind of trendy for small restaurants and chefs in big cities, and the household level of nixtamalization is also increasing. The purpose is mainly self-consumption. For the masa tortilla is marketing, and of course for the nixtamalized flour is marketing, and they sell just the flour. The masa tortilla, they sell actually the dough. Masa is dough in English, and they sell the tortillas as well. So when we think about the efficiency of the process, if we think about 1 kg of maize in the masa tortilla industry, it yields around 1.8 kilograms of dough, and it yields around 1.5 kilograms of tortilla. So that's the rate of conversion between grain and tortilla or dough. For the nixtamalized flour, 1 kg of tortilla will produce around 1 kg of nixtamalized flour, maybe a little bit less depending on the process itself, but that kg of nixtamalized flour can go up to almost 2 kg of tortilla. So that's the efficiency of the two different processes. So in terms of other aspects of the nixtamalization, if we compare the masa tortilla and the nixtamalized flour, well, the tortilla quality is better, is much better when we use the traditional nixtamalization than when we use nixtamalized flour. But nevertheless, people appreciate both of them, and it is also important to have the nixtamalized flour industry because they can reach much more people when we talk about the big city like Mexico City. The shelf life of the nixtamalized or masa tortilla industry is a little bit longer than well, it's actually comparable between nixtamalized flour and the masa tortilla. The volume of production, as I said, is bigger in the nixtamalized flour. With the nixtamalized flour, there is a large diversity of products in the market, but it doesn't mean that with the masa tortilla industry, there are not. The thing is that what they most commercialize is the tortilla, but they also commercialize the dough. And from the dough, people actually prepare several different type of food at home. In terms of cost of equipment, of course, I mean, the nixtamalized flour industry has larger equipment and it's a little bit more expensive. And the big difference is actually the treatment of the wastewater. So after we steep the kernels in water, the day after we wash the kernels, and that water is being thrown in the masa tortilla industry compared to the nixtamalized flour that in most of the cases they actually treat that water and they can be the solids are being used for agronomic purposes mainly. There are some changes in the kernels during nixtamalization, mainly, well, of course, the grain during the steeping process and during the cooking process, the grain is swelled. There are a loss of solids because during the steeping process, all the, I mean, part of the pericarp is being removed from the kernel, and so there are some solids floating in that liquid. There is, of course, a partial gelatinization of the starch, and there are some nutritional changes. So here you can see the photography of complete kernel or the whole kernel in the left panel, and in the right panel you can see the nixtamalized kernel, so the granules of starch after nixtamalization. In terms of the nutritional benefits of nixtamalization, so the biggest benefit is actually the uptake of calcium, because as I said, we use lime to help removing the pericarp and to make the kernel softer and easier to manipulate later for the different products. So during the steeping process, that lime, that is calcium hydroxide, the ions of calcium are being taken by the kernel and they stay there. So we have a retention of more than 30,000% of calcium retention. And that calcium is actually being used by the consumers when we consume when we eat the nixtamalized products. Other nutritional benefits of nixtamalization is the improved bioavailability of certain compounds like niacin. And when we consume enough niacin, we reduce the risk of diseases like pellagra. Nixtamalization also serves as a source of dietary fiber because although we wash, although we wash the kernel after the steeping process, there is still remnant of pericarp in the kernel. So we can say that nixtamalization is a partial consumption of whole kernel. And when we consume whole kernel, we are consuming most of the dietary fiber that is present in the kernel, that is mainly in the outer layer, the pericarp and the aleurone layer of the kernel. There is also a slight decrease of phytic acid that, as we know, phytic acid is an inhibitor of bioavailability of certain minerals, including iron and zinc. So when we have too much phytic acid in our diet, like for instance, if we consume too much beans or maize, complete maize, there is an increase of the phytic acid, and we can actually reduce the absorption of iron and zinc. So during nixtamalization, the phytic acid decrease is not disappearing, but it decreases and improves the absorption of iron and zinc. It also increases the ratio of calcium and phosphorus, and that's why we said that the nixtamalized tortilla is nutritionally similar to milk. And actually here in Mexico, some people say that nixtamalization is the milk of, or is the cow of the Mexican people, because it's actually a way to improve the access to calcium for the population. And it slightly reduces the mycotoxins. As we know, maize is very prone to different types of mycotoxins, including fumonicins being produced by Fusarium fungi, and aflatoxins being produced by Aspergillus. Fumonicins are more sensitive to certain conditions, cooking conditions, like high temperature or high pH, but aflatoxins are much more resistant. Nevertheless, during the nixtamalization, there is a decrease of aflatoxins in around 50% in the content. And of course, if we start with a huge contamination of aflatoxins, we will not get rid of that problem. But there is a reduction anyway through nixtamalization. So as I mentioned, there is a huge retention of different compounds, amylose, amino acids, different types of amino acids are being retained in the nixtamal, which are the kernels being cooked with the lime, with the calcium hydroxide. There is a high retention of calcium, crude fiber, insoluble dietary fiber, iron, niacin, etc. And this is just to show how is the retention of calcium during the steeping process. Of course, the longer the steeping process, the higher the retention of calcium in the kernels. After we have the kernels, we grind the kernels, and we normally use at the household level and also at the masa tortilla industry level. We use volcanic stone, and it's the friction of the volcanic stones that finalize the cooking of the kernel actually, and finalize the retrogradation of the starch during that process. And after that, we end up with this type of dough that is, of course, is really wet, is high moisture, and that dough is the one being used to produce the different products like tortillas. So in the dough, we also have a high retention of different compounds, and of course, calcium being one of them. And finally, the most common product derived from that dough is the tortilla, but in the next presentation, Rafael will tell us of different other products that are being produced from that dough. And in the case of the tortilla, there is a huge retention of the same different compounds like provitamin A carotenoids. If we start from yellow maize, tryptophan, zinc, protein, etc. So there is although the process is aggressive in the sense of use of high pH, at the end of the product is really nutritionally important because of the high retention of important compounds like calcium and minerals and dietary fiber. Of course, not everything is nice. There are some challenges when we talk about nixtamalization, and one of the challenge is the amount of water that it can use. It can be used to produce the nixtamalized products, because yes, we for 1 liter of for 1 kg of kernels, we can use up to 2 liters of water, and then that water is being well, the pH of the water increases, and the water residuals can be also a challenge. Depending on the process, there can be a high energy consumption, and also there are challenges in terms of regulation. So although nixtamalization has been part of the Mexican culture, we are still working on these challenges, and that's the beauty as well, because every time we work, the idea is to improve this important and very beneficial process. So as there are challenges, of course, there are opportunities. So some of the opportunities that have been generated are the what we call the ecological nixtamalization process that is being used at very low scale, mainly because the technology is still patented, but some industries are already using that one. Some people are actually replacing and that was actually the original nixtamalization. Instead of using calcium hydroxide, people were using wood ashes, and that could be an opportunity that is being explored and being researched in terms of the final characteristic or sensory characteristics of the product. I mean, when you think that the nixtamalized products have been part of the culture in Mexico, of course, people are becoming more and more exigent, or more and more demanding in terms of the final quality. So that's something that has to be explored. Another process is the extrusion cooking process that is low cost, energy efficient, and is more eco-friendly because it uses less water. Other opportunity is replace the calcium hydroxide with other type of salts, calcium propionate, calcium carbonate, calcium lactate, etc. But of course, the use of the different salts will have a different effect in the texture and color of the final product. And it's something that has to be researched and understand in terms of the acceptability by the consumers. In terms of energy, I mean, there is the steam nixtamalization that I think Rodrigo will explain you a little bit more about this process, but mainly contributes to the reduction of use of energy. Microwave cooking is another option. And at the masa tortilla industry, actually people here in Mexico are using gas to cook the maize, but more and more solar panels are being used to replace that gas. So that's another option. And in terms of regulation, well, the use of the wastewater is also being improved, and especially by the large companies, where they dry the wastewater, and they use that residuals for some agronomic purposes. I mean, to improve the quality of the soil. And in terms of regulations, of course, the grain quality, the quality of the starter product is very important. So kernel hardness is really important. Kernel size is also important. And regulation, here in Mexico, we have some norms that people have to follow. Some of them are facultative. That means that it is not compulsory, but it is a good guidance for the industry to use and to apply the nixtamalization. So as I mentioned, kernel, of course, the extrinsic quality of the kernel is really important. So things like damage of kernel, the percentage of kernels broken, etc., are very important for the quality of the final product. And this is applicable for any product development or any food that we prepare. If we start with a bad ingredient, we will end up with a bad product. And there are other characteristics like kernel hardness and kernel size and density that are very important, and the moisture as well. And those are being included in the regulations, in the norms, so people have a guidance of what type of condition they should use for the kernels. So is nixtamalization an opportunity for Kenya? Well, yes, and at the university, some of you have already been working with this technology and trying to adapt it to the cultural preferences. Of course, as food, every country, every community will have different preferences, and it's something that it has to be explored locally. And there are also many opportunities in terms of research and development. If we think about the quality of the maize kernels that we are using, in terms of the quality of lime that people are using, because I mean, one of the important things is here in Mexico, most people, or in general, we can find what we call food grade lime, but it has to be monitored, because the lime could also have heavy metals that can be well, dangerous for the consumers. In terms of equipment development, there are large opportunities to adapt the technology locally depending on the needs. If development of an efficient and sustainable process, we also have to think about the cost-benefit analysis and, of course, acceptability of the products. The important thing is that there are many options. It doesn't mean that we have to do exactly what is being done here, but there are different options to adapt the technology depending on the preferences of the consumer. But I have to say that this is an opportunity, especially when we think about all the health challenges that we have today worldwide, including hunger, malnutrition, and when we talk about malnutrition, nutrient deficiency, overweight, and obesity. So nixtamalization can be an opportunity, and especially when we talk about the consumption of whole grain. As I said, it's not that we consume totally. I would say it's a 50% consumption of whole grain, which is much better compared to the current consumption of maize in some countries in Africa, and including Kenya, where we consume mainly the endosperm. No, it's decorticated maize, and we lose all the fiber that is very important for the diet. So the compromise or the challenge is actually to have an affordable and nutritious diet for the population, and nixtamalization could be an alternative. So with that, I would like to thank and we continue with the next speaker, and at the end we will have an opportunity for discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for a very insightful presentation about opportunities deriving from nixtamalization. Now we're going to switch a bit the program to invite Rafael Mier, who is the director and the founder of Fundación Tortilla, which is a nonprofit initiative that promotes corn and tortilla culture in Mexico and also abroad. And before doing so, again, we would like to really encourage you to make your questions and type them as they come in the chat, and we'll try to make them in a first come first serve basis at the end of this seminar. We also thank you to be mindful about the time remaining, and we're going to really leverage the rest of the time to really try to stick to what we have foreseen before. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Rafael, if you can share your screen now.
Okay, you can see it now, no? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this invitation to the Embassy of Mexico and to the university. I'm very glad to speak from our cultural perspective of nixtamalized products. My name is Rafael Mier. I am the director of this Fundación Tortilla. Fundación Tortilla is a non-profit initiative that promotes corn and tortilla culture, basically in Mexico, but we're also working and partnering with many other friends and countries around the world. I would like to explain how do Mexicans use nixtamalized products. There are three main products that you can make. You can just nixtamalize the grain and knead it that way. You can make the masa or dough, and then you could also dry or freshen or do a fresh milling and obtain a flour. And I will discuss what kind of products we make with each of these different ways of using nixtamalized. First is the grain. You can use nixtamalized grain in many dishes. One of the most important one is pozole. Pozole is a kind of a soup, as you can see here. It has hot pepper, no? We have some chilies here, and usually we put some meat, like for example pork meat, or you can use chicken meat, shrimps, or any other protein. Or you can also do it in a vegetarian, like adding just some vegetables on this soup. This soup is very ancient in Mexico, more than probably 2,000 years ago. We were eating this kind of soups, no, and stews. Here you can see it that we serve it with radish, with lettuce, we sparkle with some chili powder, no, oregano, and some other species. Now, talking about masa, there's a whole option of possible ways to process it. Here you can see that you can use the whole grain, or you can grind it coarsely, or you can grind it finely. And depending on what kind of milling you use, you can obtain many different products. And also it's interesting because you have a whole range of opportunities to process this kind of corn. The most important food in Mexico of nixtamalized is tortilla. Here you can see a whole range of tortillas that we have in Mexico. We have them small, we have them big. Sometimes we toast them and we call them tostadas. You can make them with many different kinds of corns. We have in Mexico white corns, yellow corns, blue, and also black, purple. So we have a whole range of different colors and textures in our corns, so we can obtain all these kinds of tortillas. Tortilla is the main food in Mexico, and is one of the most important sources of proteins, calories, calcium, as Doctora Palacios has just explained us, no? Now, how do we make the tortilla? Probably you have seen them in some videos or some, no? Here you can see the handmade process. You just take a little piece of the masa and then you clap it with your hands, and then you extend the tortilla until it is formed in your hands. Or you can also use a tortilla press. Here you can see Panchita, that is a very, is a good friend of us. She's a tostada maker in Mexico, and she's using the press. Here we use the same process. We just have this kind of presses. You can make it with wood, you can make it with metal. There are many different models of these presses. So here you can see how she's pressing the masa, no, between two plastics bags, and then you can obtain this very thin tortilla. Once you get your tortilla, you take it to the comal. I will talk a little bit more about the comales later, but here you can see it. We call this a comal. We have the fire beneath, and then we cook the tortilla on both sides until it is completely cooked. Then we have our final tortilla, no? And as I explained you, this is one of the most appreciated foods in Mexico, no? And with these tortillas, we eat tacos. There are so many different possibilities that you can use with tortilla, no? Like, for example, here we have a meat taco, and here you can see with some chopped onion or diced onion and some cilantro. You can put some lemon, or you can make it with vegetables. You can make it with fish. You can make it with any kind of possible options that you can put in and place into one tortilla. You can make a taco. And tacos are nowadays are all spread all around the world because it's a very convenient way of eating corn, eating a cereal, and also mixing it with some protein and some vegetables. I would also like to explain about the comal. Comal is this kind of clay dish that we use in Mexico for cooking. It's a very ancient, it's a Mesoamerican cooking utensil that we use for cooking in a fat-free way of cooking in Mexico. Here you can see in the right side of the presentation, here you can see some quesadillas, but not fried quesadillas. They are just cooked over the comal. And here you can see some sopes, and here you can see also some memelas. All these are masa-based products, no? I will also like to explain to you that most of the masa products in Mexico are combined with beans. And this is a very important and nutritious combination because corn lacks some of the amino acids that are important to digestion and to absorb all these nutrients that corn has. No, so when you combine corn and beans, you have a very enhanced nutrition because of the lysine and tryptophan that are some amino acids that are not present in the corn or not as much as we would like it. And then we have the beans. So many dishes in Mexico, we combine corn and beans. And for example, this is one of the products that we use a lot and we eat a lot in Mexico. And it's a good example of how we combine beans and masa. Here you can see how we fold a tlacoyo. Tlacoyo is a very ancient food in Mexico. It is probably more than 1,500 years ago. And here you have the beans, and you just fold the masa, and then we used to make it in this kind of shapes, in an oval shape, and we cook it in the comal. And then we put some vegetables in top, we can put some cream, we can put some cheese, and then we prepare a whole meal over this tlacoyo. But the interesting thing is this, that you have the cereal, you have the legumes, and then you have the vegetables on top. There are so many other masa products. Here you can see sopes. Masa, you can shape it in many different ways. Here, suppose they are also served with frijoles, or what we call beans. Well, we call beans to the frijoles, no? And then you have here a tostada. Tostada is a dry tortilla, and then you can put again some beans, and then you can put some meat and vegetables. You can see how all these products are, no? We also have tamales. Tamales is also a very ancient dish in Mexico. We use it in many different ways. Here you can see different ways of wrapping tamales. We usually cook them in a steam pan, no? We used to cook them underground. You can also cook them directly in the fire. And we wrap this masa with different kinds of leaf. The most important is corn husks or corn leaves, but also we use banana leaves and many other leaves in order to cover and protect our tamales while they are cooked in the tamalera. We have a tamalera that is a special pot for this purpose, no? Here you can see how they look. Basically, it's a masa that you can make it from fresh flour or nixtamalized masa. And then you stuff it with some particular dish you want. You can make it with vegetables, you can make it with meat. We in Mexico, we love to eat a lot of chilies. So we put here a lot of chili and many kinds of salsa. It could be red salsa, green salsa. Here at the right, we have a mole that is a very important food in Mexico. So this is a mole tamal. And then we cook it either in the corn husk, or here you can see the banana leaf. We wrap it and we cook it in the steam. So these are some of the possible ways of using nixtamalized products. And there are many other opportunities. Like for example, here you can see that we have a lot of beverages as well. Some of them, they are hot, or some of them, they are cold. We have a very important food that is called atole. It's very convenient. It's used for breakfast, and it's made with masa and water, or you can also add milk if you want. And then you have a very nutritious and very healthy beverage for the morning, no? And you can also have fresh waters, like we have a pozol that is a fermented masa beverage that it comes from the Maya culture, and it's very important and very nutritious as well. No, very energetic beverage, and of course full of good things, no, to the body. And you can also bake them. Like for example, here we have some baked gorditas. These are made with fresh flour, nixtamalized flour, and you just can make a dough, and you can stuff it, and you can make them sweet, or you can make them salted. There are so many options for this, no? And we also have some desserts like these traditional cookies that are called coricos, and many other possible uses, no? So I hope you like all these dishes. I will be glad to help you if you need some help. We have hundreds of video in our websites and in our social media. We used to do some research, and we have a lot of interviews to traditional cooks in Mexico that are making all these dishes, and we will be very happy to help you, starting with the nixtamalization and try to produce new products, no? So here you have the corn. I am very glad to contribute to this cultural collaboration with Kenya. I will be glad to learn also the ways Kenya are using the corn, and of course to share the cultural knowledge we have in Mexico. So here you have my contact information, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rafael. for a great presentation. So as we wrap up and go to the last part of the seminar, I want to invite you to really leverage time remaining and stay with us after the third part of the seminar, which will be a cooking show. So we're showing some videos after this last part, and then we're having an on-site food presentation, which will be also shared at the end of the
Tasting, food tasting.
food tasting at the end of the seminar. Okay, so we want to welcome two more presenters today. Omar Gomez from Manufacturas Lenin, Lenin Manufacturers, and Rodrigo Ariciaga from the company called Molitecnia. Please go ahead. Natalia, I understand you would like to moderate this as more like a panel discussion. So I'll let you really lead this part.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. Yes, well, we will start with two presentations, and later we will continue with general questions. So we invite you, all the participants, to put your questions in the chat so we can start organizing them. And if the participants in the room have some questions, you can also start thinking about that. So after the next 20 minutes, we will have a general Q&A session. So Rodrigo, if you can start, please, with your presentation.
Sure. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, and you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Natalia. I obviously want to thank also the entire group of CIMIT, the university, and the Embassy of Mexico in Kenya for the opportunity to participate. I'm glad that this is taking place, and obviously we just hope that this becomes, productive for everybody on the audience. My part on my intake is talking a little more in detail, if you may, of the nixtamalized process at what it's called the industrial level. Basically, I guess I need to introduce whom we are. Molitecnica, it's a company based out of Bologna, Italy. We have well over 55 years of milling experience and a presence around the world. Our motto is the fabrication of milling technology and solutions, improving the waste and raising the footprint. What do I mean with that? I think the main goal of our company nowadays, it's obviously design and redefine the ways of mass produce, these products, grain milling, avoiding the impact to the environment and, pollution-wise and whatnot. I'll talk a little more in detail to that. Natalia obviously mentioned some of those challenges that we have today worldwide. And obviously, there's been a lot of new developments and a lot of the things that we have done as a technology standpoint to help minimize that impact and increase the efficiency for the company's utilization. Where we are basically present nowadays, obviously we started in Italy. We have a place or operations in Germany, Netherlands, France, Belgium, Spain, Portugal, Eastern Europe, and Northern Africa. In this side of the world, we have presence in Honduras, Guatemala, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, and now the United States, which I take part of. From the standpoint of Molitecnica, we really refocus or redefine our participation in this milling industry because it's very vast, very huge, and focus on the maize or corn specialization milling part. So we go from making, obviously leading with the nixtamalized solutions. We also have the capability to make process or designs technology for, flour for what in Venezuela and other countries in South America, they call arepa flour, which are basically pre-cooked or pre-gelatinized flour solutions. We also have the capability of dry milling, which I believe that's more acquainted to what you folks in Kenya do. And we cover other industries such as the grid production, grid production, extrusion solutions, and other applications that go in the industry. Some of the biggest highlights of our technology are basically not limited to the ones that I'm going to list, but most important, it's we have different capacities, designs, meaning that we can have solutions made for, let's say, 1 metric ton per hour capacity, 3 metric tons, 5 metric tons, up to, we have one of the largest designs worldwide for a single production line, up to 160 metric tons intake per day of clean corn. Some of the highlights, and one of the ones that I like to brag more about, it's the high efficiency from the first grind standpoint. And I'll get more into detail of what first grind means, but we're nearly 60% of the milling going through what we call the mesh 60 in US, or what you will know more of 250 microns, screening. So basically, just on the first stage of the dry milling process part, we're releasing close to 60% of the production or the output of these products. We have an easy layout for easy adjustment of different profiles of products for different applications, as you all have mentioned, or the participants have mentioned earlier, for table tortillas, for snacks, for extrusion, for coarser products, for baking per se, or some other applications that you can find as well. We have one of the technologies that has the lowest emission in dust-wise in the industry. And we continue to work to try to mitigate or minimize to zero, the emissions. Obviously, it's a challenge quiz, as if we're using a wet side or a wet product, and also a dry side of it, you tend to have some kind of a losses that is highly hard to control, that are becoming part of the emissions. We have an enclosed cooling design, with filter system and recovery of this dust, which is part of the back-to-back, goal to minimize or avoid any emissions out there. And obviously, we have the whole system already enclosed throughout the entire line, which it also helps mitigate any cross-contamination. It gives a higher, standard of food safety, and for the current regulations and how the market continues to strive for food security. I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of what you will see as a dry milling system, or what you will know, and if you can, some of you guys that are more used to, the industry scale diagrams, you will immediately understand that the first and the most important portion of a dry milling corn grid line, it's basically the first part, where we basically degerminate the corn before it goes into the next stages. So basically, we get the clean corn into our receiving tank. From there, we go through a tempering or prepping of the kernel, which we moist. I want to say about 3%, addition of water or moisture content to it, to help soften and remove the pericarp and obviously the germs. So we go through that degermination process, and then whatever we have left, which is mainly endosperm. That's what it goes through the rest of the processing line, whether you want to go through a purifier system where you get any remaining of fiber or germ particles, where you aim for to try to have the cleanest starch product as possible. From there, you go obviously into the first break, as we call in the milling industry, and then we start screening until we find the profile of particle size product that we want to aim for, or the finished good. And then from there, we go as many times as necessary on the rest of the bench mills until we achieve so, and we basically make all the flour. This is basically the step of how a dry milling works. Now, when we talk about dry milling, you know, you're gonna hit industries such as the beer grit quality or other flours that are, you know, obviously used in Kenya, the base of, you know, products, you know, for different foods and different applications or industries. Then we jump into what you call the pre-cook or pre-gelatinized industry flours. So here you'll see that we still have the prepping of the kernel. We go through the germination process, but then the big difference on this one is we go through what's called a cooking portion or stage, where we basically gelatinize the starches, that same way as we were talking on the previous slide of mainly keeping the endosperm as clean as possible. That goes through another set of you know, moisturizing, cooking, or gelatinizing, you know, using a small amount of water and steam, where it softens the kernel, and then it goes through a roller, a flaking, you know, system, where it makes that type of flat cereal flake, and then it goes through a dehydration process. So we basically hydrate and dehydrate in the form of flakes, and then it catches on, like the previous slide, through the grinding or milling, in this case, roller milling process, and screening. So basically the big difference from those two are basically either dry or pre-gelatinized, which is, there's a vast amount of applications out there worldwide for this type of products. Now we jump into what we call the nixtamalization, and before I present that part, I wanna reassure or mention again the factors that that we go through on the nixtamalization process. It don't matter if it's industrial or if it's you know, home-based or whatever scale it is. You're going to have always 5 factors to consider, which is the big difference between the dry or the wet meal that I just presented. On this one, obviously, you have the corn, the lime, the water, time, and temperature. Those are the 5 factors that you need in order to achieve a nixtamalization process. And from there, some of the characteristics, if not the most important characteristics of this process, is the nutritional value it's increased. There has been mentioned in the previous speakers how important it is, the nixtamalization as the highest added value processing for corn utilization. We basically go for a whole grain. So basically, we aim for to try to maintain the integrity of the entire components of, you know, of the kernels. So obviously that gives the added value, despite the fact that also you have a chemical reaction through the cooking process that releases nutrients throughout this process. Obviously it has a characteristics of different flavor and aroma, which are very appealing for the consumers. There has mentioned that mycotoxins are reduced, if not all, most of it, at the least of, you know, to 50%, as it was mentioned by Natalia. all the way to the possibility of eliminating all. It depends on the levels of the mycotoxins, whether it's aflatoxin or fumonisin, but there's scientific evidence that this process itself helps minimize, reduce, or eliminate these mycotoxins. The alkalinity solution helps on the dissolution of the hemicellulose or the fiber. It helps accelerate the hydration of the kernel itself. So, you know, it not only helps on the release of the nutrients, but it also accelerates and helps on the process of breaking the starch chains. To help penetrate and gelatinize the starches throughout the grain. Some of the oils out of the germ are also broken down as and they form as an
Okay, I think we lost Rodrigo. I thought it was my internet. See, okay, so we lost him.
A bit of time for him to reconnect.
Yeah, just let's see. 5 more minutes. Meanwhile, we invite you to write your questions in the chat or have them prepared. Let's see. Okay, he's reconnecting now.
Okay.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, now it's okay.
I am so sorry that this happened. I needed to put more coins to the machine, I
Yeah.
guess. Okay, so I guess, I don't know where I lost you.
Yeah, you were in the final part of this slide.
Okay, so let me just get to it. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry that happened. It had to happen to me, I guess. And obviously, the opportunity of that unique binding effect is very well known in the industry that no other flour milling solution can give the effect to the masa dough as the nixtamalized solution. So it's, for whatever reason, it's part of the mystic and magic of this process from its ancestors. Going into more detail of the nixtamalized flour process, we start with what we call the wet part of the milling, or the wet side. Basically go through a cooking stage, through, whether in this case, in this slide, we have a continuous cooking system. We obviously, from the industrial standpoint, we have to regulate the flows. So we regulate the intake of corn to control the flow. We control the temperature. We control the addition of the hydrated lime through a dispenser or feeder, or and we obviously control the amount amount of temperature or steam that we want to inject on the process in order to achieve the cooking. From there, we go through draining or rinsing of the corn and washing if necessary. A lot of the industry requires to wash it because they like to see whiter flowers with a lower pH rather than, you know, the more common flowers with a higher pH. From there, the second stage is after we cooked and wash or rinse our nixtamal, it goes to a resting tank. There's two ways of resting, whether you go steeping, that means under the same nehayote water or residual water for several hours, or you go resting under just dry, you know, holding tank. Basically, what we do throughout that time that we have to hold this product is giving the flexibility and homogenation on across the volume, meaning it softens the kernel and it gives a higher quality output down the road. From there, we go through what we call the primary grinding, which that's where I was talking about earlier. This is where we can achieve 60% with our technology of finished product quality, granulation-wise. And then from there, you will typically find now in the industry that the most optimal way of dehydration is what we call the flash dryer system. So in a period of 2 to 3 seconds with high temperatures, we take a product that is from nearly 45% internal moisture down to what you know, the flour characteristic of 11% moisture. From there, obviously, we go through to cool that product in order to continue the process. And that process is, again, just like the dry milling and the pre-gel processing. We go through a sifting or a segregation particle size. And then, you know, the remilling or the second portion of mill. So we just go on a cycle until we release all the finished product that it goes through it. Then obviously in the industry that typically you will find ways to measure the output and you know, with a flow meter or some kind of a weighting system. In other words, this is how you see a finished production line of nixtamalized flour. And again, the highest advantage of this compared to the previous two slides that I present is that in this particular one, we do not remove the pericarp on purpose. There's some losses throughout the process, and obviously you have also some losses of solids or starches. At the end of the day, the goal of this industry is to maintain the same level of components, fiber content, starch content, and oil content on the finished good as you have on the original, you know, kernel itself. Obviously, one of the challenges that Natalia mentioned, it's the environmental impact. And I'll talk about that here just shortly, but we have developed systems that are wastewater free, which is a great advantage industry-wise, and also has a very low consumption of water on this process. I guess there was a slide earlier that mentioned about 1.5 cubic meters per metric ton of corn, which is very industry standard, opposed to the smaller operations that you find throughout Mexico and some other countries that goes up to around 4 liters per kilo or 4 cubic meters per metric ton of corn utilized on this processing. Back to this process, just to wrap it up, the 3 most important portions of the process itself, it's obviously the cooking, the nixtamalization. That's where the magic happens. That's where you make the from dry or pre-gel processing to nixtamalized process. The second stage, believe it or not, is just the resting, just holding the corn after it's being cooked before you grind it to masa dough or to make masa flour. It happens in the resting, and it is very important. The industry holds at the least about 4 hours contains the product after being cooked, and up to overnight. You know, the smaller industries, the smaller shops, they typically tend to leave the corn for no less than 12 hours of it. So kind of depends on the capabilities and what you're aiming for. This is the second most important portion of this process. And the last, obviously, is the grind, the first grind, if you want to call, or the way you're gonna make that dough, whether you want to make a coarse flour or a fine flour. What you're aiming for is the dough itself, which that's where you're gonna make the products, whether it's tortillas, chips, tostadas, tamales, and everything that we've seen on the previous presentation. You know, that's basically where you can manipulate the characteristics or the quality of that product from the grind itself. And as I was mentioning, we're unveiling just one of the first technologies approved in the industry that uses about a 25% water usage. And I say about because it depends on what you want to compare. You want to compare to the industrial level or as industrial standard or the regular smaller shop. The important part is that we use roughly between 20 to 25% of the water compared to that industry. That's what we have worldwide today. And obviously there's no emission of wastewater, which is probably the most important part of it, and the opportunity to contain the entire product throughout the same line where you can increase your output or yield. Just as a comparison, and I compare a lot of the products that are consumed today in Kenya with, you know, the cornmeal or the arepa flour that we know in South America, which is basically a degerm product. The current flours that you folks use there or in other countries are typically at best about a 75% yield from the clean corn, you know, transformation. And from that one, you have a product that it's obviously going to give you about 170% yield to the finished goods from the flour or cornmeal or dry flour itself. In the nixtamalized process, since we use everything, you know, all the grain, all the pericarp and germ and everything that it's contained on the formation of these kernels, we have at the least an opportunity to achieve a 93% yield from the clean corn from the same base, if you might. One of the slides that Natalia presented earlier, she mentioned 93 to 98, and obviously you can achieve that. Depends on the system, how well are you set up to contain and maintain the majority of your, the structure of your corn. The finished good on regular tortilla basis, considering the Mexican market as the foundation of it, you can have a transformation of this product flour-wise into finished good up to 180% yield, roughly. Obviously, the market is going to press for more, but at the same time, it's the point of equilibrium of the transformation. So with that said, I guess the big opportunity that we see in places like Kenya is basically the advantage, the usage improvement and advantage of utilization of the kernels or the corn itself into the diet base or the intake. Some other applications that we see opportunities for masa flour, because it's not limited to just tortillas and snacks, which are the most popular applications worldwide. We also see opportunities for bakery, premixes. I think it was mentioned earlier, the advantage of being a product gluten-free. And there's obviously a trending growth on products or acceptance of foods that are gluten-free, despite the fact that the market is intolerant or not. It's growing as we go on. Gluten-free pasta solutions. We also have the capability of making pasta flours or strudel products with masa flour or masa-based products. So, you know, the big difference between a masa-based product obviously goes from the nutritional standpoint. And lastly, obviously, we have other applications such as thickeners, fillers, batters, dusting applications, and so forth. So basically, the opportunities are endless. I think we just have to find some creativity and a good excuse to utilize the corn itself to its max capacity. With that, obviously, I want to wrap it up, and I want to thank you all again for this opportunity. I think there's going to be some questions and answers here in a bit, so I'll be more than glad to help. And I'm going to stop sharing and let, I guess, Natalia is the moderator of this section.
Thanks, Rodrigo. So we will quickly pass to Omar from Lenin Manufacturers, if you can start sharing the screen. And yeah, we can, after his presentation, try to answer some of the questions that have been posted. We have been trying to answer them in the chat as well, just to save a little bit of time. Thank you.
Hi, Natalia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, okay.
And we can see your presentation.
Excellent, great. Okay. On behalf of Manufacturers Lenin, I want to thank about this opportunity to let you know about our company, what we are doing here in Mexico, about nixtamalization process and all in relation with the industry. So let me provide you the following information. Okay, let me talk to you about the whole history. It all started back on 1988 as a result of the need to create high-quality options for the food industry. We started off by selling tortilla machines and spare parts for the dough and tortilla industry. We quickly grew our operations and then started producing a wide variety of innovative machines, along with technical support for restaurants and tortilla shops in our region. Thanks to our customers, our company keeps ascending year by year, expanding our specialized team and high-tech machinery. We are proud of being the tortilla machines manufacturer with more presence worldwide and in Mexico. We have presence in over 75 countries, including Kenya, and keep growing each day. We are Manufacturers Lenin. So I will provide you some information about, you know, if you are interested in a business project in relation with a smaller scale, not too big. Let me show you about our headquarters. We are located in a city called San Luis Potosí in Mexico. As you can see here, well, there, we manufacture all the tortillas machine, spare parts. As you can see, we have area for shipping. We have some CNC machines, milling machines, drilling machines. And on the left, you can see an exhibition area where we can show our machines working, you know, to our clients. They can test their, you know, their own dough and all the ingredients there, you know, in order to verify if the results are okay, because our machines not only produce corn tortillas, we can diversify the products. including some pita bread, some chapati, and other products. But obviously, the mainly one is corn tortillas and wheat flour tortillas. We have a distribution center. As you can see, we have all the machines there, ready to be shipped. And I will tell you about the equipment that we have to offer from Lenin. Okay, so the nixtamalization process starts here with our cookers. We have both manual and automatic cookers, so you can cook properly your corn and produce high quality nixtamal dough. We have some manual machines and automatic machines. So about the manual, made with an angled frame and with stainless steel plates. Or manual cookers are an economic and practical way to cook your corn and make nixtamal. As you can see it in both pictures, the one of the left is the manual. There is a valve, to take off all the kernels from there, and the automatic cooker. Our automatic cookers come with an inner mixer included, which provides a more uniform cooking process. It's highly hygienic, fabricated with a gate to transfer the nixtamal into a manual washer or an automatic washer. We have them available in different capacities for 100, 200, 300, and 500 kilograms. Comes with its own line of burners because the machine works using electricity and gas. About the gas, you can operate it with LPG or natural gas or propane or different kind of sources. For the automatic cookers, we provide electrical motors for 220 voltage, 60 hertz, and we can provide for single or three-phase motor. And then you have to leave resting the dough leave resting the kernels in these washers. So the same we provide them for manual and automatic system. About the manual, that is you can see it in the left. It's our manual nixtamal washer has with a stainless steel lined structure an angled tube with a draining system and capacity of 70 kilograms. As you can see, most of the machines that we offer are in stainless steel or food grade, and the automatic washer. This equipment washes nixtamal in automated and efficient process. It can transfer the nixtamal from our automatic cooker to our corn mill. It has an stainless steel line structure and draining system. And we provide them the same for two-phase or three-phase and electrical motor and reversible switch. The machines work the same with electrical motors working for 220 voltage, 60 hertz, and single or three-phase electrical motor. And the corn mills. We offer two main corn mills for tortilla shop. The small one is the San Luis corn mill, and it's a simple low maintenance equipment. It has an nixtamal tray, which is fed with the nixtamal. We have three different versions. We have different capacities and number of grinding stones: 60 kilograms, 120 kilograms, and 250 kilograms. The corn mill, that is the one that we recommend for tortillas chip. Our corn mill has a hooper in which you can pour up to 3 buckets of product, which is automatically fed. It's compatible with automatic washer, in a straight production line, and we provide them with electrical motors working for 220 volts, 60 hertz, single three-phase motor. As you can see below, there are two examples about the corn mills that we manufacture in Lenin, and the mixers. We have different kind of mixers to offer. Our single mixer is a perfect not only for corn dough, for corn tortillas, also for elaboration and mix other products. It's fabricated with an angled frame, 400 stainless steel top, carbon steel arrow, and aluminum paddles. It comes in different capacities, the same for 25 kilograms, 50 kilograms, and 100 kilograms per hour. As you can see, we have several options for a small business project and for bigger as well. Our food grade mixer has a food grade stainless steel top, arrow paddles, making it way more resistant than our single version with aluminum paddles. This is perfect for the production of corn and wheat flour dough, you can use it for both. It can also be used for the production and mix of different products. Is the same capacity for this mixer, 25 kilograms, 50, and 100 kilograms. And we have some certified machines, certified by NSF, that is an American agency that certifies all the materials that have contact with food, directly. So we have some corn tortillas machine and some mixers already certified. And they have food grade stainless steel, hopper, paddle, sarrow, tray, and bench. I think main parts. Its design enables an easier cleaning. They are perfect for the production of wheat flour or corn flour, and it's also ideal for the preparation and mixing of different foods. And the capacity is the same from 25 kilograms till 200 kilograms. And finally, let me show you some successful industry practices that we have, mainly within Africa. As you can see, we have several clients. I think the main markets within Africa is in Ethiopia, Algeria. There are two companies in Kenya. I think it's in Nairobi, if I'm not wrong, working already with our machines, doing the nixtamalization process there, and corn tortillas mainly. So in Ethiopia, you can see they are working with a San Luis corn mill, doing the nixtamalization process there with corn. And the final product they are showing us, the final product that is the standard corn tortilla and some corn chips that you can get from the machine as well. And there is a person operating the manual head unit that is pretty economical and pretty easy to operate it, producing corn tortillas. So this is in Ethiopia, and the next is in Vietnam. They are operating a corn mill there, doing the same process, nixtamalization process. They are specialized in corn tortillas, corn chips, tostadas, and several products that they can get from the nixtamalization process. And one important thing to say is, for all the people that are interested in this kind of business, we can send one technician to install the machines, to train the people how to get the best performance from the machine, how to provide maintenance, and all the jobs can be solved there. And in Russia, the same, we have some machines operating there, doing nixtamalization process. They are specialized in wheat flour tortillas. However, they are working this year in corn tortillas, doing the nixtamalization process as well. So this are very successful options for us. And finally, we want to say thanks for this opportunity. And if you need further information about our company, about our products, please contact with us at any time. We really appreciate this opportunity. And thank you, Natalia.
Okay, thank you, Omar. And thanks, Rodrigo, for the two presentations. They were more focused on the equipment and the different technologies. As you noticed, Omar presented more the equipment that we normally use for the masa tortilla industry, and the description made was more for the flour industry, although, I mean, they have the capacity to produce all this type of equipment. So we have some questions, but Cynthia, I just wanted to ask if we have enough time to address some of them.
Yes, please go ahead, Natalia. I see we were very happy to see that that all the colleagues who have been connecting online, about 50 to 60 people, have been really actively participating in the chat with several questions that you've been taking care of, along with Rafael as well. But I think because you already answered some of them, I wanted to propose to you, if you want to wrap up and take some of the ones you've already commented on, or you want us to go one by one. I think
No,
we need some time for that. I do really think it's important.
Yeah, well, just couple of questions. I mean, one of the latest one, and probably Rodrigo can comment more on that, is regarding how can we incorporate nixtamalization if we are using dry milling? What
Yes,
are the alternatives?
right. Can you hear me there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I meant to mention that on my part. Definitely the big opportunity here is how can you accommodate the nixtamalization process in a current condition or industry, let's say there in Kenya. And obviously I assume that most of the industry there was dry milling. I don't know if there's much of the wet milling or pre-gelatinized, but that was the main reason why I presented the 3 slides comparing the layout or flow charts on a regular mill. And if you see, there's so many things in common with one another, which is the grinding technology, the sifting, the pneumatic transportation, or however it's being conveyed from one point or another one. Yes, it can be done. Yes, it can reduce the amount, call it, of investment, and gives just the total focus on the wet cooking process and the hydration, so then it can get back in track. So in other words, it can be set in parallel, whether you want to start on the cooking process and then dehydrate and get into your regular layout, or whether you want to utilize part of the byproduct, which is also achievable. Is not the most common way per se. You don't want to nixtamalize the germ grits, but you can certainly do it. I'm not gonna deny that. The opportunity of the nixtamalization is more important, is take advantage of all the nutrients, and efficiency-wise, take advantage of the whole kernel. If you can achieve that, you're basically giving added value to your end consumer. So I think that's the main goal and opportunity. That's where we benefit from.
Yeah, just to complement, I mean, this can be possible at the large scale. However, at the local scale, I mean, we have to think that nixtamalization is a wet milling process. So we first prepare the dough, and then from the dough, you can do the different products. So yeah, that's the answer to that. There was another question regarding Rafael, perhaps if you can comment on that regarding how can we use or what do we use to prepare the beverage, like atole that was shown in the presentation.
Okay, yes, thank you, Natalia. Yeah, you can make atole with many different options. One of the most common atole in Mexico is made with nixtamalized masa. So you just combine it with water, and then you boil it, and then you have this hot beverage that you can put some fruits, and you can put some cinnamon and many different flavors. You can also flavor it with many possible options, no? So the important thing is that if you use the nixtamalized masa, you have all the benefits that we have talked here. But you can also make atole with dry grinded corn, or you can also boil it, but you will not get all the advantages of the nixtamalization, no? So I think we will recommend that you try this nixtamalized atole, and it's great if you combine it with cacao, for example, with chocolate. It's a very nice beverage that we call here champurrado, and it's very nutritious and very healthy. Thank you, Natalia.
Yeah. Onu, there is also a question regarding how can you prepare a bread out of maize? Do you use fermented maize, or how is it?
Yeah, well, one of the problems of corn is that it doesn't have the gluten. Probably you could help me more in that side, Natalia. But so corn breads does not inflate that much, no. But yeah, you can make a lot of products with corn. You can bake them in many possible ways. Sometimes you can use either the masa, or you can use corn flour. either corn flour or nixtamalized corn flour, and you can bake cookies and you can bake some flat breads, no? Like, for example, Spain has a lot of tradition baking some breads. For example, Brazil is also known for baking a lot of breads made of corn flour. So yeah, you can add it, or you can even mix it and make a mixture with corn flour and probably some other wheat flour, and then you have this volume that we're used to, no?
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yes, indeed. I mean, many people mix maize, nixtamalized maize with wheat to have a little bit of expansion, but otherwise, I mean, flat bread is also very common. And there were some couple of questions regarding the effect of nixtamalization to reduce the aflatoxin content. And actually, in order to have 10 parts per million, the maximum you can start with is 20 parts per million. And that's true. Actually, the effect is not huge. But we have two things that I could mention. One is aflatoxin is actually a multidimensional problem. So we have to tackle from the field to the plate, actually. So different strategies, starting with some varieties that are actually better performing in the field, that have the ear is properly closed, so we prevent the invasion of insects that actually bring the fungi and the disease spread in the ear. Or varieties that are tolerant to drought are also very good in terms of tolerate the infestation by aspergillus and production of aflatoxins. And also there are other methods of control, like biological control, where they apply toxigenic strains to the field, to the soil, so they compete with the toxigenic strains of aspergillus, and in that way we reduce the chance of production of aflatoxins. And being done that type of improvements, and of course plant density is also very important, because you have to play with the moisture or the humidity and the heat during the kernel development. So those are alternatives being done at the agronomic level. And then you have some alternatives at the storage level, because you can do a perfect work in the field, but if the kernels are not properly stored, then you can have a proliferation of aflatoxins. So there are also different alternatives or technologies in terms of storage. And one of the important things is also address the moisture of the kernels and the ventilation during storage. And during the processing, as I said, aflatoxins are really hard to destroy, let's say. And how we reduce the aflatoxins during nixtamalization is because during the nixtamalization, we partially remove the pericarp, and most of the aflatoxins are normally in the pericarp if the kernels are not hardly contaminated. If they are really contaminated, the aflatoxins can go up to the embryo and endosperm, so we cannot do anything about that. But if the kernels are not really highly contaminated, during the nixtamalization, we remove the pericarp and then we get rid of the aflatoxins. There is also, it has been demonstrated that the high pH of the aflatoxin opens the ring, the high pH of the nixtamalization opens the rings of the aflatoxin, and like that, the aflatoxin cannot be toxic anymore. However, when the pH is being reduced, that means goes again to 7 more or less, then the ring can reform, and then the toxin become a problem again. So that there is a controversy about that, and it's something that is very difficult to monitor, because actually the detection methods that we use for aflatoxins are based on the fluorescence of that ring. So there is still research being done on that, but what is really for sure is that the main part where we remove the aflatoxins is due to the washing of the kernels. But as I said, you have to see the aflatoxin problem as a multidimensional problem, and like that, you have to use different alternatives. That's one thing regarding the aflatoxin. The other thing is that nixtamalization bring many other nutritional benefits beyond the aflatoxin issue. So that's something that you can consider when you think about nixtamalization as an opportunity to bring more nutritional benefits for the consumers. And again, it's an alternative. There is no bullet solution for anything, but it's an alternative that can be considered. And like that, I think we mainly cover the main issues that were discussed in the chat. I don't know if the people that is in the room have a specific question. Otherwise, we just pass the microphone to Cynthia.
You can sit here. Sit here. Yes, yes.
I have a question to Rodrigo.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. On the technology, do you have any successful installations, especially in Africa, or it's something that you want to come in with? And then also, when you are coming up, how long did it take for the process to come up with it? Maybe if there's patent on the technology or something of the sort.
Right. Well, we definitely don't have a presence in Kenya, and this is been a work that we started several months ago in conjunction with CIMIT. You know, our objective and goal is not just obviously to promote our solutions, but to offer across the world opportunities of improving the ways, if you might. I think you talked something about the patents. Obviously, we did not invent this technology. The industry or the industrialization per se of the masa flour production, it goes back to early 50s or late 40s in Mexico. So there's been a long overdue, you know, time of opportunities of patents. There's some specific patents that we have set up, as I mentioned a bit earlier, on the development of the sustainable solution for nixtamalization. Yes, we do have one on that one, and that's also main reason why I didn't present, you know, publicly the layout of the equipment alone. But we're basically finding ways as we continue to move forward and continue to innovate to improve the utilization of the whole corn and to minimize our footprint or impact to the environment. You know, I guess there was one question earlier that if this processing can be adapted to the dry milling, and I touch a little bit on that. Some other questions were related to the utilizations of certain specific equipments like roller mills. Roller mills can be used in a stage, on a second stage of the processing of masa flour, but not necessarily on the wet side. So, you know, we're hoping to have the opportunity to visit down the road in the near future. We're hoping to continue collaborating with the embassy and with CIMIT and the university to help on the education side and on the industry side of solutions.
Great.
And I don't know if I missed another portion of your question, ma'am.
No. All right, thank you so much. Anybody else would like to make a question in the room?
Questions?
All right. Ambassador Martinez, Dr. Carujo, if you'd like to say something, we're getting to the last part of the seminar, so please go ahead.
Okay, mine is just to thank you all, to thank the ambassador and his team, and to thank everybody who has come and spent the afternoon with us, both in person and online. Thank you very much. I think it has been an important occasion, and I think we have gained quite a lot from it.
Well, thank you very much. You know, as a final words from our side, the Embassy of Mexico to Kenya, or in Kenya, I really like to thank very much also the University Jomo Kenyatta for this opportunity to be able, you know, to bring in some very useful information about the process, that very simple process that we use in Mexico, nixtamalization. We have always said that, you know, unfortunately, 400 years ago, more or less, this is what we know, is that the Portuguese brought maize to this part of the world, but unfortunately, the technique did not come with this this exportation, you know, of the product, you know. The product has been used here for a long, long time already, and I could say that as it arrived here and it has been used for so long, you know, and it has been used in a so successful way, you know, in the nutrition of people in this part of the world. It's never late, you know, to bring in to improve the technique to process this cereal. I think that there are a lot of advantages that you all excellent expert speakers, you know, express in using this very simple technique. And the advantages are manifold, you know, as you all talked, you know, about nutrition and food safety and world security itself, you know, as properly Natalia spoke about that, which is one of the major policy objectives of the government of Kenya right now, the 4 major objectives. So it's never late to contribute to that aim, and certainly Mexico is very willing to help in that regard. We are very grateful to all of our partners, and especially to CIMIT, you know. Natalia, I want you to transmit our thanks, very warm thanks to all people in the directive level for this work that we have been done together for so many years now. So I really want to thank also to all the speakers who were very helpful in transmitting all this information on how we process maize in Mexico. I want to thank Rafael Mier for that very good sample, you know, of the diversity of dishes that we make in Mexico, that all make our life great. Unfortunately, we are too far away to be enjoying what you presented, Rafael, but we were very pleased to receive that information. And also to ONU, it was very useful, all the information you presented, very rich, and we were able to understand how the situation, or what the situation is about the food consumption here in Africa. So regarding, you know, the presentations of Omar and Rodrigo, you know, you gave us a great idea of the way we produce an industrialized way maize in Mexico. It was very, very clear how we do things, what the process means at very different levels, capacities of production. And I'm sure that with all this information, you were able to I mean, to deliver knowledge that many people do not have on this side of the world. Certainly, the Embassy of Mexico is very willing, to continue with this work. And certainly, we are looking forward to partnering with other actors, besides the traditional ones like CIMIT and CALCO here in Kenya, in order to see whether we can put some up other efforts, from other countries to acquire additional support through triangular cooperation. So I really like to thank you all for this very fruitful exercise. And I wish you well. Take care of yourselves as we will try to do here. Unfortunately, you will not be with us from now on. We'll stay here for a little while in order to eat some good tacos. We have just we prepared some very nice food, some tortillas. Some tortillas were produced here in the Jomo Kenyatta University with the machine that was donated by Mexico. And certainly we did some additional ones in my residence, in our residence here, in order to try what the Jomo Kenyatta produced in a nixtamalized way here locally, and some flour tortillas that we made with. Okay, our moderator Cynthia is going to.
All right, thank you so much. Last but not least, because we want to share just a piece of what we're about to enjoy, we want to show you two short videos. The first one has been led by John Kinutia, who's a researcher here, who works directly with the milling machine, teaching students on the benefits and the process and how to market and finally make a profit out of it and make a business. So so he's going to show how to actually nixtamalize. And then the second one is a video of how to prepare tortillas and how to prepare sopes. And this video was led by he's a chef of a taqueria here in Nairobi. His name is Spira, and the taqueria is Fonda Taqueria and Bio. Okay, please go ahead.
My name is John Kenudia. I'm a plant engineer at the Enterprise. And at the milling factory. When we receive our raw materials to make, first of all, we test for the moisture content to see if they are aflatoxin free. This equipment is a moisture meter that helps us to measure the moisture content of the bean. And the recommended moisture content is between 13 to 15%. For nixtamalizing, we need first we need water and the limestone, the calcium oxide, and maize. Now, for nixtamalizing the maize, the first step is to boil the water. Then after boiling the water, we pour the rice.
It's floating, right? And it's removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
dough processing. No?
My name is Peter Cornell. I'm the executive of Foda Taqueria. We do Mexican, authentic Mexican food in Western Service Center, second floor. We are going to show you how to make a tortilla, corn tortilla. Right now, this is the corn masa from dry maize. This has been nixtamalized. So 8 hours later, blended. So, nothing else, just drain the masa, drain the corn, make the masa, so the masa is very cold, and then you make the tortilla. So you take your bread, masa, shoot it round like this, hold your hand like this, and then you put it on the command. You let it for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. You normally put it on 6 minutes. 1.5 to 2 minutes, and then you put it over. Again, 1.5 minutes, and then you put it over. 1 minute. With those minutes that are gone, again, you flip it over like this. Again, 1.5 minutes, 1.5 to 2 minutes. So for the last bit, the food is on a very high heat, which is the middle of the command. That is when the heat is concentrated. So you flip it, and then you leave it, so that it passes in. So this means that the tortilla is really soft. The texture is nice. It cannot be able to break. And now our tortilla is ready, nice and soft. So for the last bit, the food is on a very high heat, which is the middle of the command. That is when the heat is concentrated. So you flip it, and then you leave it, so that it passes in. So this means that the tortilla is really soft. The texture is nice. It cannot be able to break. And now our tortilla is ready, nice and soft. We are going to make sausage. So we're going to use our masa. So the sausage depends. You can make a medium size, you can make a large size, you can make a small size. Depending on the feeling. Like ours, we're going to use approximately 35 grams for making the sausage masa. Basically, we're going to use most of our work we're going to use our hands. But again, we have tortilla prep. After making a ball, put it in the middle. Don't press it too much. Just to get a nice round shape like this. Again, remove. Stop it. Edges. This is what you do. You edit like this. You make it round. Making sure your base is intact. Like you can see, this is a medium-sized sausage. And then like this, just put it on a command like this. Then you leave it 2.5 to 3 minutes on a moderate heat over the command. The oil on a medium heat of our command.
Oh no?
Approximately 3.5 to 4 minutes, both sides. can either you can bake it, yeah, so the right now you're baking. So you can add your oil so that it becomes crispy, golden brown. So this is our concept here, and now we're going to make one soft taco from our lamb barbacoa. Now we are doing sope, doing the filling for sope. You can see we fried it to get a texture, a golden brown also to change the flavor. So what to do with the shell of your sope, basically we're going to use a fried bean paste, some mushroom and green, just a vegetarian, and fresco and crema. And our soup is ready to get a crunchy texture, creamy texture. So it's not going to be dry. To make sure your cheese and also beans are not dry out. So that you get
Sí, eso es todo. ¿Quieres ya?
Ya, si quieres.
Ok. Bueno, creo que we have just come to the end of this seminar. As I said, I thank you all very much for your very valuable participation. Just as last words, I'd like to say, and request Dr. Karugu to transmit our deepest thanks to the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Victoria Wambui, for her kind and warm welcoming for this exercise here in the university. Also, we know that we would like to thank also the Ministry of Agriculture of Kenya for the support that we've been receiving from government, and to CALRO, which is the Kenyan Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, that depends from the Ministry of Agriculture. CALRO is a very close partner to us, and they have been really very useful in transmitting all this knowledge here in Kenya. And also, we would like to finally, to thank the Cereal National Mills Association of Kenya for their participation. We just had another seminar a few days ago, which was very successful, and we know that some of its members might be participating this time with us. So we thank all of you for your participation. I thank you very much, and I don't know if there's something else, but if not, we will say goodbye until the next time. Thank you very much for everything.